So, hi everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Nominis Recoveris Blockchain Intelligence webinar following the money tracing and recovering illicit crypto activity. My name is Julia and I'm the social lead at Nominis, and I'm so grateful that you've chosen to join us today, and we hope you find this very insightful. So today we will be hearing from Snir, the CEO of Nominis, and Roman, the head of product of Recoveris. So each of them will present for about 25 minutes, and then we will have a question and answer period afterwards for all of them. And you can feel free to type your questions in the chat, and I'll note them down to ask the speakers during the relevant time. I would like to first introduce Snir to speak. Snir is the CEO of Nominis, who will be presenting some of the work we do in terms of illicit crypto financing. So Snir, I'll give you the floor.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Julia. Nice to see you all. So we'll start today with a presentation about tracing of illicit cryptocurrency transactions. Let me share my screen. I can see that people are still joining, but we're going to start anyway. Perfect. Okay. So hello again. Hello, everyone. For those of you who I haven't met, my name is Snir. I'm the founder and CEO of Nominis. Nominis is a company that deals with blockchain intelligence. And specifically, we've built a platform which allows organizations to conduct risk screening, money tracing, and basically to understand who is active on the blockchain, what is the risk score of any wallet and any transaction. We cover today over 70 different blockchains, and we work globally with law enforcement agencies, exchanges, PSPs, DeFi protocols. Everyone are welcome. So let's start. So basically, Nominis has visibility for the global movement of crypto, including illicit activities, utilizing over 13,000 mapped services. We have today over 13,000 mapped services, meaning wallet addresses, the structure of this VASP or this exchange, deposit addresses, withdrawal addresses, and etc. And we have the largest crypto terror financing and geointelligence database. So before we start, let's try and understand what is illicit activity. So illicit activity is not just one thing. It consists from a lot of different stuff, from money laundering, scams and frauds, sanctions evasion and terror financing, ransomware payments, and darknet market transaction. All of the above are happening on a daily basis, and we're talking about billions every year that goes into accumulated amount that goes into those type of illicit activities over the blockchain. However, even those are billions of dollars, eventually this is still a small amount in percentage out of the total amount of transactions and volume that goes over the blockchain. Those are some examples. Yeah, every time that we need to trace something or to understand or to conduct research, we first need to understand what exactly are we looking for? Do we want to find connections? Do we want to find if this wallet might be risky or not? Do we want to find the source of funds? So when we say tracing, this is not just one thing. It consists of, again, of a lot of different stuff. And at the top of it, we need first to understand what is the purpose of the tracing that we're conducting. So we have here a few examples of what is tracing illicit cryptocurrency transactions. First example is from Swiss exchange. This is an example to a Swiss exchange. We can see the main wallet, we can see the deposit address, and we can see that this user received funds from both sanctioned entity and also from high-risk exchange. In this case, the purpose of the tracing was to understand what is the source of funds. And in this case, we're able to detect that the source of funds are linked to sanctioned activities and also to high-risk exchanges. Second example is about donations. Some of the data is censored, but what is the idea behind donations? Yeah, a lot of donations happening over the blockchains. We're talking about tens of thousands of campaigns that's receiving funds over the blockchain. And eventually, while there is no issue with getting donations over the blockchain, it's good, it's fast, it allows to collect donations at scale. Still, when you do donations campaign, some of those campaigns do have some sort of a blockchain intelligence platform that want to that help them understand what is the source of funds, but some of them don't have. In this example, this is a big donation campaign with over 4 million, of funds that currently sitting in the balance of the wallet, and we can see that our platform was able to market as a critical. In this case, again, the purpose of the tracing was to find out what is the source of funds. Unfortunately, in these donations campaigns, and specifically in this one, the funds came from, again, sanctioned entities and wallets that link to illicit activities. Third example is terror financing via UK banks. This is something that might be surprising, but banks today is a big target for a lot of organizations to move funds because of the large volume that they have. In this case, we can see pretty much direct exposure from the blue one, which is the censored. This is a UK bank that just moved funds into multiple entities, multiple occurrences, and multiple transactions into different type of entities, including Hamas, some service that belongs to extortion and terror in Indonesia, Dubai Exchange, which is a sanctioned entity in Gaza, and 2 more blocked wallets. So we see today that no one is you can say protected from such activities, either banks, either exchanges, DeFi protocols. All of them are today exposed to illicit activities, unfortunately, in many cases because they don't even know that. And the last example, and super interesting one, this is a slide that we had 1 year ago in our presentation. And actually, 2 months ago, the Canadian authority decided to fine this VASP because eventually it found the same thing that we found. This VASP barely did any compliance and is highly exposed to different illicit activities, including dark web markets and facilitators of terror financing and other stuff. So eventually nothing is getting under the hands of the regulator. This is also something that we see, even though it takes them time, eventually they're able to put their hands and to find the relevant exchanges and VASPs. So in general, what are threat actors? Yeah, it's not just one person. It can be multiple stuff, from organized scam network to professional fraud and laundering groups, coordinated actors, hostile states, even states like North Korea in this example, brokers and intermediaries, which provide cash out services without conducting compliance. They're also part of the threat actors. And eventually those are focused on speed, scale, and evading of detection. One of the famous cases is of the president or the owner of the Prince Group in Cambodia, Chen Zi, which up for today, as far as I know, this is the largest crypto scam or human trafficking that ever happened in terms of in crypto, and maybe not just in crypto. This guy literally built an empire of scamming people. A lot of US citizens and people all around the world, billions of dollars in revenue that this empire was able to generate every year. And another example is in a nation level. We can see this guy, which is part of the IRGC. If you'll take a look 2 years ago, a lot of statements about the activities of different terror organizations over the blockchain. The assumptions was that there is not a lot. And then we suddenly see that such actors, this is a wallet that was active until 3 months ago, September 16. This is a wallet that belongs specifically to the IRGC. They used it in order to facilitate funds that link to sanctions evasions and oil. So basically they sold oil, they moved the cash into crypto, and that's the way that they were able to move the funds. Over 400 millions in dollars that eventually moved over the blockchain that links specifically to the IRGC and linked to their activities of selling oil to different countries. So why threat actors deciding to adopt blockchain? I can tell you from what we see, by the way, in OSINT, people in different countries, especially countries that are sanctioned today, they don't really have any capabilities to move funds. And you see a lot of posts about it, that those people say, I can't use Visa, I can't use MasterCard, I can't use PayPal, I can't use nothing. The only option for me to move funds is using the blockchain. So this became today one of the favorite option by a lot of people from all around the world that don't have access to banking system, either because they're from a low-income country or because they got sanctioned, or a country that under some sort of a global block. The only way to move funds is in crypto. The myth is, of course, that crypto is anonymous. However, we know from the reality that public blockchains are pretty much transparent, and every transaction is permanently recorded and traceable. Okay, tracing is the first step towards disruption and recovery. How threat actors are actually obfuscate the funds? So they have multiple techniques. Yeah, the famous or the most used ones are hops, moving the funds, multiple wallets, especially on Bitcoin we see it, peeling chains, bridges using different blockchains to move the funds, sometimes out of the blockchain and then out of specific blockchain and then back to a specific blockchain, mixers and aggregators, again, using some DeFi protocols and mixers in order to obfuscate the source of funds. This is an example, a classic examples from the Bitcoin blockchain. You can see a wallet, the blue one, that just received a lot of funds from CoinJoin wallet. CoinJoin is some sort of technology, almost or more than 10 years actually, that this technology existing, and still in use widely in Bitcoin in order to take funds from multiple people, join them together, and then split them again. So someone who wants to see the source of funds won't be able to see. The only thing that you will see is this sort of activity of CoinJoin. So the purpose of using CoinJoin is either privacy or obfuscating the source of funds. This is very classic methods, especially in Bitcoin. Another example is, of course, using mixers. One of the things that we do is detecting indirect exposure. In this case, you can see the blue wallet. By running this wallet in our platform, we can see that it has connections, or the source of funds is linked to multiple mixers, and also to DeFi protocols. So basically, this person tried to hide the source of funds. He used both DeFi protocols and mixers in order to obfuscate the source of funds, and then move those funds to different exchanges. Now let's talk specifically about scams and fraud. This is one of the biggest issues today in crypto. The estimation today is that there is almost 80 or close to 80 billion that were lost annually to crypto fraud. However, approximately only 10% reported. People, in many cases, we see it not just in crypto, but also in the fiat space, people are embarrassed and ashamed and don't want to report. The statistics discussing about 10% only of scams that actually getting reported. And it's everything. It's investment scams, it's hacks that, of course, that today on the blockchain, the majority of the hacks can be easily found, but there are many cases of hacks that were never reported, and only a few years later, when someone did some tracing activities, it was able to understand that the funds were actually stolen, and the entity that the funds got stolen from didn't want to report about it. Impersonation scams, Roman scams, ATM fraud, a lot of fraud and scams that utilizing ATMs all around the world especially elderly civilization, in order to take money and hide it over the blockchain. And the impact, of course, is extending beyond the victims and also affecting the regulated financial system. The old approach doesn't work anymore. Yeah, we see that there is increasing volume of transactions. Manual analysis can't work anymore. Yeah, you need automated tools. You need something that will allow you to conduct investigations in scale. However, the industry is still, even though we see there is always progress, the industry still behind, and every year we see an increased amount of scams and fraud and stolen funds. This is one of the interesting examples that we have. You can see here a wallet that linked to some energy scam. If you take this wallet and probably check it in other vendors, you won't see anything about it. Yeah, a lot of information of this wallet is from the OSINT and SOCMINT that we do. The only thing that you can see here is this unnamed service is linked to China. You can see from the shadow intelligence, you can see information that this wallet was mentioned multiple times in Mandarin, and also from the source of funds, which you can't see here, it is also connected to Y1 and different Chinese exchanges. This is a great example of how OSINT, SOCMINT, forum mentions able to allow organizations to, when they trace the funds, to understand what is this exchange or wallet, even though it's super difficult because there is no website. There is only Telegram bot in this case. So the consequences of everything we just spoke, yeah, those scams, those fraud, everything. So the regulator is not just saying, okay, there is no liability for the companies. Eventually, all those scams and fraud need to find the way to do cash out. And in many cases, it goes into traditional exchanges and regulated companies. We saw over the last years, billions of dollars that eventually different VASPs, exchanges all around the world had to pay because of violations of AML, tracing, and other stuff that led to compliance. From visibility to action, yes. So how do we move from just knowing and to actually do stuff? So scams and fraud continue to increase. Yeah, blockchain transparency makes the tracing possible. However, we see that different threat actors are constantly evolving and doing more and more stuff. Manual tracing shows transaction, but not full context. It means that today, relying only on source of funds and on-chain analytics is not enough. You need to have a full suite, to have on-chain, to have off-chain, to have behavioral intelligence. When you combine all of those stuff together, you get something that allows you to see the bigger picture, and not just the source of funds and where the funds headed to. Thank you, everyone, of course. I will now give you 5 minutes to questions if you have. And after me, there will be Recoveris with Roman, which will discuss about asset recovery.
Thank you so much, Snir, for that. So first, we have a question in the chat. Do you have any insights about coin joins, or you just look at it the same as a wormhole? I'm not sure if you saw that already, if you want to answer that.
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So coin join, it depends. There are different types of coin join. Some of those coin join has, we can say, a distinct cluster, which in this case, it's very difficult to understand who is behind this this coin join cluster, because it involves everything. In some of the cases, we even saw funds from Mt. Gox, yeah, the exchange that got hacked more than 10 years ago. Some of the funds were mixed into this coin join cluster to a big one. So we try in many cases to distinguish between different types of coin join clusters. However, until today, there is anyone who deals with Bitcoin, there is One of the biggest clusters in Bitcoin is a cluster that belongs to CoinJoin. I think it contains over 40 million wallet addresses. And no one really knows who's behind them. Yeah, those are a lot of different people. It's either wallets, infrastructures, exchanges that started using it 10, 12 years ago and still using it. So while we do try to distinguish between different types of CoinJoin and other techniques like Wasabi and Samurai Wallet, and we do this, there is still today a large cluster of wallets that just flagged as CoinJoin.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Snir. I think another question that we received that might be really interesting to address is why so many people do not report being involved, let's say, in fraud or scammed, or why exactly that statistic is so low in terms of the percentage.
This is the human behavior. Eventually, I think the two problems is that first, people that, you know, when you talk about it, they need to explain why there were, like, you know, how it happened to them, and people hate it. Yeah, not just in crypto, in general. They hate to you know, to show that they failed or didn't understand or got frauded. We see it many times. This is one of the main reasons. And of course, the second one is that they basically don't believe that someone will be able to recover this. So when you took those two things together, they say, okay, I got frauded and that's it.
Wow, that's really, really interesting to hear. Thank you so much. I think timing-wise, we'll just go with one more question. I would love to understand why you think certain blockchain analytics firms downplay, let's say, crypto used for terror financing, if you would be interested in addressing that.
That's a great question. I think that terror financing is a very sensitive, it's a very sensitive topic. It affects eventually the entire industry. And it's also a difficult one to investigate, because eventually, how do you find terror financing wallet? You need some sort of a hint. You need some sort of a state that will tell you this wallet belongs to a terrorist or terror organization, and you need to start from somewhere. And today there is not a lot of data about terror financing. You can see that even though there are a lot of wallets that got sanctioned, it's still not a lot in comparison to other scams, fraud, and other stuff, because mainly in order to understand if a wallet belongs to terror financing, you need some collaboration from nations, from states. And if you don't have this type of collaboration, it's very difficult to start building the map and to understand if a wallet might be linked to terror financing or not.
All right. Thank you very, very much, Snir. That was very insightful. So I would now like to introduce Roman Bieda, the head of product at Recoveris, who will be discussing his work on recovering illicit funds together with law enforcement. So Roman, I'll give you the floor.
Hi, everyone. Let me share the presentation and let's start. All right. So I want to focus today on issues with current various case types that we encounter in blockchain. A bit about my background. I'm currently head of product and co-founder of Recoveris. I'm also expert on virtual assets for OSCE. I testified as expert in courts in Europe and US federal courts in blockchain-related cases. Trained hundreds of law enforcement officers in many countries. I also provide workshops for SGH, SGH, the Poland's top business university. Just today, we announced that we also, as Recoveris, provides a certification program with Frankfurt School of Business and Management, so feel free to check it out. As head of investigations of one of the previous companies I worked for, I built the blockchain analytics tool, one of the first in the space. We're active globally. Feel free to check our LinkedIn, and you'll find plenty of cool stuff there. But what's on-chain analysis? Well, basically we start from address, transaction, group of addresses, clusters, right? And we trace either forward or backward to see where the funds go, where the funds come through. Usually the trader will mix the funds with funds from other sources, split the funds, use mixers, bridges to obfuscate the tracing, right? But still, these days, fraudster eventually would like to cash into fiat on centralized exchanges, diplomats, OTC during the OTC trades, and so on, right? So this is what we see on chain. We see a certain address sending funds to another address and then splitting the funds to even more addresses. We don't know who's behind it, but obviously, if you are notified by the victim of the fraud, of the theft, that the funds ended up on the wallet of the scammer, for example, then we can attribute these wallets to the scammer. And then with tools like Nominis or with our in-house Intel, we can attribute also certain wallets to, for example, a cryptocurrency exchange or to the breach. If it's attributed to the breach, then obviously we need to find a withdrawal transaction on the blockchain, right? And we still follow the perpetrator up to the exit point. So for the perpetrator, the goal is to make this path tracing as difficult as possible. And for us, it's to catch up as soon as possible in order to preferably freeze the funds, because when the funds are frozen, then the recovery process is much faster, relatively faster, because then the legal process, most of the cases are cross-jurisdictional, international. Legal process may take up to a few months or even over a year. But when you have frozen funds, then the chances of recovery are much, much higher. And the cost of the whole process is much lower, rather than, finding the exit point, but finding out that funds are already gone. So what's very important is to speed up the process as much as possible. This is what we also do at Recoveris. We basically automate the work of our investigators as much as possible in order to win this arms race with scammers who come up with new ideas of how to launder the money. And obviously, other ways to find the starting point, the starting transactions or starting addresses, maybe through search and seizure, through e-discovery. I was doing e-discovery at one of my previous companies. And so here we can detect actually that someone was using cryptocurrency wallet in Windows files, Linux, Mac files, right? During search and seizure, we can detect it physically, right? But also we can detect it using logic and OSINT. Let me show you an example. This is in Polish, so let me quickly translate it for you, or summarize it for you rather. This is one of the influencers on Twitter or X, and this influencer is complaining that governments these days are tracing us more and more. They want our money, but they don't want to take the risk. So if I'm trading as cryptocurrency trader, I have a good trade, I have an income, they want me to pay the taxes. So this influencer is giving advice to his followers how to enter and exit crypto fully anonymically, without KYC, without bank. And he attached this photo of him holding the recipe from Bitomat, right? So what we see here is the date and the time, the amount in Bitcoin, and obviously the amount in euro that was received back. So with a very fast select from Bitcoin blockchain, we can limit the transactions to this time and this amount, and we end up with one transaction matching this data. And then using tools like Nominis or other providers, we can actually de-anonymize the wallets, right? So in that case, the receiving address from this transaction is identified as Shitcoins Club, which is one of the largest Bitomats providers in Europe, maybe even in the world, definitely well known in Europe. And what we can now deduct is this person that posted the photo deposited BTC, received to Bitomat, received cash in return. So the sending address within this transaction is actually belonging to this person, right? So that's it when it comes to fully anonymized withdrawal without KYC. And when we're talking about investment scam, this is really a plague out there. 66% of all fraud crime reports featured cryptocurrency in UK in 2024. And according to The Economist, the size of the online fraud industry estimated approximately $500 billion globally. And we have various types of investment scams, but we can really find a lot. The more victims approach us, the more intel we can find. We're approached during my career, for example, by victims of various scams, but we noticed that the contracts provided are fully the same, just the logo is different. But also wallets or addresses provided by the victims of various scams, various aliases of various scams are within the same clusters. So this shows us that there's one group behind these various aliases. Here was clustering, right? Single address based on grouping, you can collect more wallets that with a very high probability belongs to the same person, right? Then you can go even further and you can find change addresses, you can cluster them together. So having 50 addresses from 50 victims, you cluster them and you confirm this is the same person or the same group of persons, people cooperating together. Now there's also Roman scam, and here, what we know from the investigation of many companies out there, including Recoveris, who was featured in Reuters article, these criminal organizations that are structured like corporates are also performing human trafficking. They force kidnapped people to scam victims online, and obviously these days they use AI more and more. So there are tools online that enable you to generate any type of government ID. You can generate the video, change the way your appearance, right? So really new technologies used by the scammers, and there are thousands of scam websites, usually pretending to be legitimate platforms. So usually there'll be one letter different than legitimate platforms out there, right? Bitpex, copying Bittrex website. And what we see is different platforms, but the same IP addresses, similar age of hundreds of platforms, same size of these platforms, and similar structure of these platforms. So we know the same group is most probably behind all those fake investment platforms. Now, we can, from on-chain analysis, this black wallet in the middle, we can deduct that this is a Roman scam. How is that? We see Binance US, various deposit addresses receiving relatively small deposits, 96 USDT, 200 USDT, right? Those are fake interests paid to victims of the investment scam. Fake interests, but in total, this address from Binance US hot wallet received over 2 million USDT this is the investment from the victims. Similarly with Coinbase, right? We see plenty of deposits to many deposit addresses of Coinbase, relatively small, but we have huge withdrawals. And eventually we see that this black wallet is moving everything to the orange one. And then the mixing funds dissipation starts. Again, we have different scam platforms receiving funds from many victims. But on the left side, one platform, on the right side, another one, and you see they receive funds. They send funds to the same wallets, and there are this is how dissipation looks like. So what we've noticed is different types of fraudsters like to launder money in different way. Fake investment scammers, romance scammers, they like, because they scam on the large scale, they like to dissipate the funds, split the funds, and strongly mix the funds with the funds from another victims. And then you have a huge legal issue because you have various law enforcement from various jurisdictions, various victims from various jurisdictions, and even if you manage to freeze some assets, then the question is whose assets are those? There may be a claim from another victim from another jurisdiction. So if you are a victim of the fake investment scam and $1 million is frozen, it may be difficult to prove that this is specifically your money, not money of 10,000 of other victims of the same group, right? So this is how they operate. They know that they're smart. They do that on purpose, right? But there is also a huge automation in the dissipation of the funds. So sometimes we see a simple path to centralized services. So in the middle, you see bigger dissipation, but on the right side, you see just 2 hops and the funds end up on a cryptocurrency exchange. And I was approached by 4 different individuals who were victims of different scam aliases. And as you can see, victim number 1 lost $1.3 million, victim number 2 nearly 400K, and so on, right? So I traced the funds from these victims, and there was obviously this dissipation of the funds. Funds ended up in various destinations, but I found one Binance deposit address that received funds from all these 4 victims, and this is how the tracing starts, right? You have a dissipation of the funds, and if you simplify the graph, you have this black wallet, black address in the middle, which is deposit address of the exchange. What we can get from the exchange, plenty of fingerprints, right? These are fake ones, not from this specific case, but just to give you an idea of what you can receive. You can receive the IP, but also browser details. And this is often helpful to de-anonymize complex lawyering scheme to prove this is still the same person at the end of the money laundering scheme and in the beginning of the money laundering scheme. And if you're interested who was behind this deposit wallet, feel free to check this article from Reuters based on our investigation, based on my investigation. This was the Chinese, this was a Chinese guy living in Thailand. He was even funding some events where Thai police was attending, and eventually FBI seized a lot of his assets, and he was basically a money launderer for this scam organization. And another plug these days is P2P, right? So if you enter Telegram and you search for OTC trades, P2P trades, cash to fiat, fiat to cash, you'll find in your city, definitely you will find places. And I know Nominis is really targeting those strongly, and you'll see huge turnover on those addresses, right? So this is really a gray area where money is laundered heavily. But we have also child sexual abuse materials that are traded with crypto. This is one of the analysis our investigators did, where we identified plenty of darknet services, and these darknet services enable access, lifetime access for only one-time payment. So when you see deposit to the address of this service, you know this is one person, right? There is no need to pay twice. And we've noticed that for this service at the bottom of the graph, there were 352 payments. For another service, 333 payments. So this number of users identified. And the payment was fixed in BTC, right? So there were the same, many transactions of the same BTC amount. So we know how many people purchased materials at these websites. But what is interesting is that when you do the source of funds, in many cases, you could spot direct withdrawals from centralized services. So in order to identify who's buying this type of materials, all you need to do is to trace one hop backwards. Obviously, this could be a stolen account, right, at these services, so there's a need for more investigation, but I'm just showing what you can spot on-chain using very simple logic and on-chain analysis. Inferno Drainer, malware as a service. This is an interesting one because this, the way it works is there's a group of hackers who created a software that drains wallets, but they do not attack victims directly. Rather than they sell the license to the draining software. So other groups of scammers, hackers can rent it, and then they post phishing posts, usually on Twitter /X, and usually on the stolen accounts of various projects. And they post a link that is a phishing website. If we take a look at the source code of such website, we see that there's a function embedded. When connect wallet button is clicked and wallet is connected, funds are drained automatically from this wallet. And from on-chain analysis, what we can see is the funds are split. For example, in terms of native Ether, funds are sent to smart contract, which splits the funds automatically 80% to the user of the malware, 20% as a fee for the malware creator. So using smart contract, these groups may trust each other, right? Zero trust function that enables that makes sure that both provider of the malware and client of the malware is paid, and it's usually 20-80 split. With tokens, we see it differently, so funds automatically go to the client and there's a fee collector contract for the malware creator. But with NFTs, obviously you cannot split it. NFTs goes directly to the client of the malware. Then we have also on-chain messages. So Inferno Drainer message notified us that actually there was a change. Inferno Drainer claims that they sold their software to Angel Team, another group of hackers. At least this is what they claim on chain. So this is also interesting what you can spot on chain and what intel you can get. Thank you very much. That was just a quick overview of various types of cases that we deal with. Feel free to join our LinkedIn, check out all the good stuff, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Roman. So I see that there were 2 questions in the chat that Snir addressed, but I think that it would be really interesting to get your perspective on those as well. So with the increasing use of AI in cyber attacks, has the adoption of AI by adversaries enhanced their capabilities or increased sophistication of scams? Perhaps you've noticed this in law enforcement.
Definitely, AI was first used by scammers, so increase the capabilities of scamming people and enabled them to lower the cost. Example, instead of forcing or hiring a group of people who would, randomly text you potential victims, AI is now running. LLM may run this initial phase of victim onboarding, and then there will be switched to human when someone starts to reply. Or as I showed in the presentation, changing your face easily even during the live calls instead of forcing kidnapped people to do so, to do calls with the victim. And as investigators, what we're trying to do is to actually use AI in order to use the same technology in order to combat the crime. Meaning, as head of product, I'm building a lot of automation, and I experiment a lot with AI, which is great for certain tasks to automate or make certain tasks easier, faster for us. Obviously, it's not yet there everywhere, right? So you cannot trust it always, but for certain tasks, it's perfect. So as I said earlier, it's arms race, right? Using the same technology for good or bad.
Thank you so much. And so on that note, have you noticed an increase, let's say, in impersonation in terms of AI-related threats in law enforcement? So for example, generated voices, phishing, deepfakes?
Not that much with generating voicing. Obviously, there may be instances of targeting high-net individuals and generating voice of the daughter, right, or the kid. But on the large scale, rather impersonation of the appearance or automation of the conversation is the most common now, at least the ones I encountered, right? But obviously, I can speak about the cases that comes to my desk.
Okay, thank you so much. And how about we go for one more question? I would love to hear some of the biggest challenges investigators like you face when tracing funds across, let's say, multiple chains or jurisdictions.
I would say the biggest challenges are first, we are a private company, so we need to be paid for our work one way or another, and the case has to be significant in order to justify the costs for the victim. So the challenge for me is to tell many victims that I'm sorry, but tracing, a large sum for you or me, but relatively to blockchain tasks, small size case, it's not feasible. And this is the biggest challenge personally for me. Thus, we're working on automation and we're working on the process that would make it better, scalable, and will help more victims for a much, much lower fee. But in terms of investigative work, well, it's the biggest challenge is on the jurisdictional part. So we end up with certain evidences, but unless sometimes it's hard to get the smoking gun on chain. This is just a piece of the bigger puzzle, and we end up with let's say we're the mixing funds through the mixer. We end up with the good candidate on 2 candidates or 3 candidates, right? And it's very logical that it may be a candidate, but it's not a smoking gun. It's probabilistic approach. And we don't know. So then it would be good to get some intel from the service that received the funds from the certain wallet we identified. But from legal point of view, in this specific jurisdiction, you cannot just fish for info, right? So it may be that for law enforcement, it's not enough. So then you could try with the civil route, but civil route, you need to pay the lawyer, right? So that's the biggest issue, I think.
All right. Well, thank you very, very much, Roman.
Thank you.
So I would like to thank everyone for coming to this webinar today. We hope you learned a lot about illicit crypto funds and the process of recovering them. I really want to thank our amazing speakers, Snir and Roman, for all of their work and their continued work. We're going to upload a recording of the webinar, so stay tuned for that across all of our social media platforms. We'll post it as soon as possible. And then if you have any questions for us, or you're interested in hearing more about what we do, or you want more information, feel free to check out our websites. They're listed on the screen. And thank you very, very much for coming, and we hope you have a great day.